Hello, hello, hello. As many of you are probably aware, the Tory leadership race is coming to a close very soon, and there is somewhat of a split among the right as to whom we'd prefer as the Tory leader. I made a video about this last week where essentially I said that I prefer Kemi because she is the weaker candidate more likely to expedite 0 seats. Yet, I have seen from Conor Tomlinson that he would far rather Robert Jenrick. Now, I should say that as a Reform Party member, I believe reform is the only option for the British right, and even as reform seems a bit wet on certain issues, there's just really no hope for the Tory party and we'd be fools to give them anything. So on that front, I personally want whichever candidate will expedite the death of the Tory party. Yet the impression I'm getting from Conor here is that he genuinely supports Robert Jenrick and believes what he's saying. Now, I've done a little bit of digging on Jenrick, and I think that this is utterly naive of Conor to support him. So watch this video as I essentially go through all that. And I should say at the start, I have a profound respect for Conor. I think he's a brilliant man, an intellectual heavyweight. I met him briefly at the Reform conference. I'd say I agree with him on practically every issue. Yet when I saw this video that he's made about Robert Jenrick, I just felt I had to rebuke what I see as complete naivety. Anyway, so the thing with Jenrick seems to be that he is talking all about English identity, which for a British politician is a rare thing to do. So I'll try to find some articles here. Robert Jenrick vows to kick out 1 million illegal immigrants. Great policy. Jenrick wants to ban visas for India and other countries that do not take back migrants. Great policy. And Jenrick has seemingly been steadfast in his opposition to the mainstream media attempts to basically deny English identity. In fact, Jenrick has been sounding like he's a bigger advocate for English identity than even Nigel Farage. Yet I think this is all just talk. Clearly it's all just talk. I mean, first of all, even if Jenrick could be leader, the MPs that he's got and many of the members in his party are just too wet to accept him. And it would be a dysfunctional party. And it's for reasons like this that I think the Tory party is it's a foregone thing that really should just be put in the bin of history. Utterly spent party, no good to us whatsoever. But Conor Tomlinson seemingly has been banging the drum on Jenrick. To be fair to the man, he's not been entirely in his favour. He has been sceptical here and there. But to a large extent, he seems to be Jenrick's man. And I just think this is bizarre. So let's take a look at a few of the things that Jenrick has said. First of all, Jenrick's been very weak on net zero. He's not been rabidly for it, I'll give you that, but he's not been steadfastly against it. He seems to have a track record of saying that we need to ground the debate in reality, that we need to be pragmatic about it. I mean, here's the tweet thread, but yes, here we are. We need to balance net zero against our security and economy in a more responsible and pragmatic way. This is balancing net zero. I mean, I've made a video on this. It's like one of the worst policies there. Potentially worse than the immigration. You know, two terrible policies. But he wants to balance this awful thing against good things in a pragmatic way. It just seems two-faced. Yeah, I have this article here. I want to cut emissions, but I'm not going to do it by deindustrializing our economy. As the commenter down here says, it's standard double talk. You can't have net zero policy without deindustrialization. That's the point of net zero. Seriously, watch my video about this. Not many people have, but the point of net zero is anti-capitalism. For this man to be tepidly in favour of net zero, or at the very least not fervently against it, he is not our man. And this is something that Conor Tomlinson didn't really talk about, and I'm not sure he's aware of. Potentially, I've no idea. And there's this article as well, presumably from a left-wing group that wants net zero policies. I mean, they're trying to find examples where he's clearly against net zero, but even here he's saying stuff like the Conservative Party will stand for cutting emissions. And back in 2019, he said that voters should support the Conservatives on the basis that the UK was the first advanced economy in the world to pass a net zero target. And he praised the UK's world-leading commitment to net zero by 2050. Net zero is not a small c Conservative policy. It's not a right-wing policy. It's a rabid, anti-capitalist, left-wing policy. Then you have the stuff like this, where Jenrick really proves himself to be a bit of a wet. This is a recent article, 13th of October 2024. Jenrick wants Mordaunt back in frontline politics if he wins Tory leadership. To be fair to Conor, he does have this in his video. And he does correctly say that Mordaunt is a person who has been aligned with the World Economic Forum, has said that trans women are women and trans men are men, has generally seemed to be a duplicitous snake, and probably isn't a small c conservative, but rather a poorly disguised bit of controlled opposition in my eyes. And yeah, Connor does say all this, yet for some reason this isn't making alarm bells ring for Connor. And it's not just Penny. Jenrick has also said that he would be pleased to have Boris Johnson back. I know Boris Johnson was popular with a lot of people, but he has proven himself to be a traitor. He was the architect of mass immigration post-Brexit. He did things like removing the requirement to advertise jobs in the UK domestically before advertising them abroad. This man in every way is not a conservative. He's just a snake. And yes, Connor does say all this, but why does he make the exception for Jenrick? I do not understand it. And then lastly, it's important to look at what Jenrick actually wants. And I think the answer is here. And look, I know that saying it makes it sound like I don't believe it, and he who has to say I am the king is no true king, but I promise you, I'm not usually one for conspiracy theories. I'm not anti-Semitic, I don't frankly care. But Robert Jenrick clearly is a Zionist. This here is his wife, a Jewish woman about 9 years older than him, and they are together raising their daughters in the Jewish faith. Now, I haven't found conclusive information about Jenrick's personal faith, but almost always a man brings up his children in his faith, not his wife's faith, if they are different. Then again, she's 9 years older than him, so who knows who wears the trousers. But in any case, all one needs to do is read this article to understand that Robert Jenrick has been a Zionist from day one. I mean, back 4 or 5 years ago, he was accused of breaching planning guidance over a planned Holocaust memorial. Essentially, days before he approved the application, it emerged that he had met 2 of the project's chief bankers and their lawyer. And here's Jenrick saying that we should display the Star of David at the UK border to show we stand with Israel. I mean, you can find countless examples where Jenrick essentially is a Zionist. I mean, in my last video I had a go at David Lammy's loyalties not lying with Britain, but I think it's clear that Robert Jenrick's loyalties don't entirely lie with Britain either, but jointly with Israel. And yes, again, to Connor Tomlinson's credit, he does mention all of this. Yet, for some reason, and I can't really fathom, he gives an exception. Now, I have of course watched this video, and I recommend you watch it too, but the impression that I've got from Connor is that he seems to be completely wooed over by Jenrick's talks of Englishness at the expense of better sense. I mean, Connor's a man who's been vehemently against the Tories. He's called them out for being liars, he's called them out for just talking the talk. Like, before any of this leadership race was going on, he seemed to be fully on board with the idea of 0 seats, that the Tories can't be trusted, that they'll be lying every moment they can. Yet, for whatever reason, here he is, believing a Tory who's just talking the talk. And yes, it's stronger talk than it has been in the past, but it's still just talk. Robert Jenrick, even if elected as leader of the Tory party, must know that he won't be in government for at least 5 years, likely never again. A man who wants to unify with Penny Mordaunt and Boris Johnson, a man who won't give up net zero, a man whose loyalties clearly lie with Israel, not exclusively Britain, and yet Connor's been banging his drum. What I want as a Reform member is 0 seats for the Tories. What I want as a right-wing person is 0 seats for the Tories. What I want as a small c Conservative person is 0 seats for the Tories. Yet I've seen many people on the right who have also said they want 0 seats for the Tories be in favour of picking an apparently strong Tory leader and believing him. I don't understand it. Connor consistently has been a level-headed, intelligent guy, and yet now he's acting as though he's a Tory partisan. Like, someone explain this to me. It's a bizarre level of naivety that I can't really fathom. I'm not going to accuse Connor of being paid off, but it almost seems like he has been. This is how naive he's being. And Connor, if you are watching this, then I greatly respect you, but you are so wrong on this matter. I'd love to have a discussion about it further, but you are so wrong about this matter. We want the Tories dead. You should also want the Tories dead. Banging the drum with a Johnny-come-lately who's just talking the talk. How can you trust this man? How? The people in the comments don't. Why would anyone trust the Tories? If you fall for this ploy, you're a fool. Let's be honest, Jenrick is a Tory and has no intention of deporting anyone. I don't care what they promise, I'm never voting Tory ever again. He's been a Tory MP for 10 years and voted for the 2019 legislation that enabled the expansion of mass migration and a massive increase in the numbers coming in. You go back to his Wikipedia page, he was a Remain voter. Okay, some people change their mind, but come on now. It's all talk. It is my sincere belief that Jenrick knows what he has to say. He is a duplicitous snake. He's like any other Tory, by the way. But he knows that he has to say this, otherwise that's his career gone and his party gone. And for Connor Tomlinson, who is in every way a champion and role model for Gen Z men like me, to be in favour of Robert Jenrick, I hate to say it, but it's disgraceful, mate. Absolutely disgraceful. Like, how? How can you fall for this? Like, I don't mean to go in on you too harsh, but it's bizarre. Academic Agent has been quite clear in the fact that we need to vote Kemi to get 0 seats for the Tories. Other people have been quite clear. I mean, yes, there's the idea of starting a right-wing arms race with Reform and you know, stopping them from being complacent boomers. Yeah, which they have been, I hate to say. But doing that by empowering the Tories is not the way to go. But look, it's one thing to argue that we should vote for the weaker candidate. The bigger problem I have is that Connor believes Jenrick. Throughout this video, to Connor's credit, there are multiple things he shows where Jenrick shows himself to not truly be a small c conservative man. The planned alliance with Penny, wanting Boris Johnson back, stuff like this. But Connor's making so many exceptions for him, so many excuses for him. Like, I don't understand why. He says, oh yeah, Robert Jenrick wanted to form an alliance with Penny Mordaunt, yet Penny didn't want to form an alliance with Robert Jenrick, so hopefully this means that Jenrick won't seek out that kind of alliance. Why make the exception? Why? We are in a time now where the Tory party are weaker than they've ever been. We should be kicking them whilst they're down, not falling for talk once again. I mean, this is like a Peter Hitchens level of abandonment of ideas. I don't get it. I don't get it. If someone viewing this has the sway to make sure this video gets to Connor, that would be amazing. Because I really want him to see and understand what sort of a man Jenrick is, and that I think it's insane that he'd believe him. Connor's been so good in the past on every matter, but I mean, stuff like displaying the Star of David at every UK border. I mean, this is the exact sort of thing we've been against for years. Having foreign flags at British borders or on British public buildings. This is no different. I'd love for Connor to respond. I'd love this to be seen by more Tory members, because this man cannot be trusted. He's pro-net zero, arguably Israel first, and happy to form alliances with the Wets. I mean, Connor's theory that October the 7th caused some sort of a Damascene conversion in Robert Jenrick, I'm not sure I believe it. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please like, subscribe, and God save the King.